Jake Hoyt is a police officer in Los Angeles. He's quite ambitious and wants to get a promotion. For this, he is assigned to decorated detective Alonzo Harris for a one-day evaluation. Alonzo works in the narcotics department as a field agent. Jake wakes up to a phone call from Alonzo asking to meet nearby. Jake quickly prepares himself and goes to a restaurant to meet Alonzo. Alonzo comes off as a strict man who scolds Jake for disrupting him while he's reading his newspaper. The two get in Alonzo's car and he shows off some of its best qualities to a stunned Jake. They drive around the city with Alonzo bragging about the cases he's solved and those pending. He advises Jake to be on his best performance if he wants to be a detective someday. Jake promises to do everything Alonzo asks him to do. Despite having different personalities, the two get along well and Jake is excited for his training day. Alonzo parks his car near a college where kids are dealing drugs. He has an informant who tells him when major drug dealers are in the area. Soon, someone pulls up and Alonzo chases after the car. He and Jake apprehend the dealers and confiscate their drugs and money. Following this, Alonzo congratulates Jake on his cooperation. He asks him to smoke some of the drugs, saying that a good narcotics officer should know about the drugs he's using. Jake refuses to smoke, so Alonzo holds him at gunpoint, demanding that he leave as his training is over. Jake reluctantly takes a hit, and later Alonzo confesses that the marijuana was laced with PCP. Over the next few hours, Jake is high on the drugs and has vivid hallucinations while Alonzo discreetly laughs. The two visit an ex-cop, Roger. After retiring, he started dealing drugs and he questioned Alonzo on his deal with the Russians. Alonzo explains that he has everything sorted with the Russians. While canvassing the streets, Jake sees some shady business happening in an alley. He demands that Alonzo stop the car in the middle of the highway and he rushes to the alley. He assaults two guys who are trying to molest a teenage girl while Alonzo watches. Jake manages to overpower the two and Alonzo sends the girl home after warning her about safety measures. He then threatens the perverts at gunpoint and releases them, much to Jake's chagrin. Before leaving, Jake finds the girl's wallet on the ground and pockets it. Alonzo tells Jake that a narcotics officer should be willing to trade favors with small-time crooks to get the big fish. Later, Alonzo has Jake attempt to buy drugs from a crack dealer in a wheelchair called Blue. Blue immediately recognizes that the two are cops and starts fleeing, causing Jake to go after him. Eventually, they corner him in a salon and threaten to arrest him. Blue realizes that going to jail will be bad for him, so he offers information on his employer, Kevin Sandman Miller. Alonzo calls the police station asking for information about Sandman's residence. He drives up to the house and sees several gang members in the neighborhood. Alonzo says that Sandman is in jail, but he has a search warrant to check the house for weapons. He starts searching the house while Jake deals with a woman and child in the house. The woman demands to see the warrant and questions whether Jake is a real narcotics officer and where the backup is. Alonzo comes back and apologizes for the intrusion and asks to leave. The woman demands the warrant, so Alonzo gives it to her and exits the house. The woman quickly realizes that the warrant is fake and that Alonzo has stolen her money. She walks out of the house screaming for the gang members to shoot the cops. The gang opens fire and Alonzo retaliates, allowing them to flee the neighborhood. Jake is confused as to what has just happened, but Alonzo claims that being a narc is hard, and if Jake isn't up to it, he's welcome to go back to regular police work. Jake decides to stay with Alonzo and the two go to his home. Jake meets Alonzo's mistress, Sarah, and their young son. Alonzo's neighborhood is a gang hotpoint, and while they hate Alonzo, they tolerate him because he's a police officer. That evening, Jake falls asleep with Alonzo's son on the couch. Alonzo wakes him up the following day as they have some meetings to attend. The two meet with several LAPD high-ranking officials in a fancy private club. Alonzo introduces Jake to the three men and asks him to sit at a separate table while he talks to them. Once again, the men ask Alonzo what his beef with the Russians means, revealing that he owes the Russians a large sum of money. They advise him to skip town, but Alonzo says he has it handled. After the meeting, Alonzo calls someone for an arrest warrant, trading the money he got from Sandman's house for it. Jake suspects shady business, so he refuses to ask what's happening. Alonzo meets up with a few other narcotics officers and plans the mission. Soon, the team drives up to Roger's house and holds him at gunpoint. Roger is betrayed to realize Alonzo is behind the raid, but he blames it on the three officials he met earlier. Alonzo has two men hold Roger captive while the others dig a spot in the kitchen to find Roger's stash. Expecting to find drugs, Alonzo is elated to find $4 million. He congratulates Jake on his bust, saying it's not every day that a rookie brings in a $3 million case. Jake inquires about this and he learns that Alonzo and his men are keeping and sharing $1 million. He refuses his cut, causing the other men to be uneasy. The men return to the living room where Alonzo wants Jake to shoot Roger. Jake thinks it's a joke, but when he sees it's serious, he refuses to fire, causing Alonzo to do it. Alonzo then places a gun on Roger's hand and shoots one of his men to make it seem like a self-defense move. After this, he explains that it's not what you know, but what can be proved, and walks everyone through what has happened. Unfortunately, one of the bullets shot at Alonzo's men passes through his bulletproof vest. The team calls for backup while Alonzo threatens Jake should he change the story. The other men want to kill Jake, but Alonzo calls them off. Alonzo tells Jake he can give him a gratifying career, but he has to be all in his side business. Jake wants to report everything that has happened, but Alonzo claims no one would believe him over the other decorated officers. Moreover, he has PCP in his system, and that would end his career entirely. Jake realizes that everything was planned, including the drugs, to which Alonzo confirmed that he had been planning this moment for weeks. Reluctantly, Jake agrees to stay silent just as the police arrive. Jake is still devastated and wonders why Alonzo would sell out his friend like that. Alonzo claims that Roger was a major drug supplier to kids. Alonzo tells Jake that the best way to bring about change in the community is to play the game. Once everything is settled, the two leave Roger's house. In the evening, Alonzo drives up to the house of a Serenos gangster to run some errands. The gangster, Smiley, is in the house with several men playing poker. Alonzo excuses himself to use the bathroom while Smiley forces Jake into a game. As the game goes on, the men trick Jake into surrendering his weapon. A while later, Smiley confesses that Alonzo had left after paying to have Jake eliminated. Jake tries to flee, but the thugs apprehend him. They reveal that Alonzo must pay the Russians $1 million by midnight or be killed. Alonzo had fatally shot one of them in Las Vegas for bad-mouthing him and had been given the ultimatum. Jake attempts to escape one more time, but the thugs easily overpower him and start beating him up. They drag him to the bathtub, intending to drown him. However, one of the men decides to check his pockets for some money and comes across the wallet Jake had picked up earlier. Smiley asks Jake what had happened, and Jake frantically explains he had saved the girl from being molested. Smiley calls the girl his cousin and confirms the story. Smiley is grateful to Jake, so he forgives his elimination and lets him go. Determined to get revenge, Jake boards a bus straight to Alonzo's home. The gangsters around try to stop him, but they let him go when they learn he wants Alonzo. Jake lures Alonzo's son into opening the door and accosts Alonzo in the bedroom. Alonzo is packing the money he needs to deliver to the Russians, and Jake tells him he won't make the appointment. Jake wants to arrest Alonzo, but he reminds him that he cannot prove anything as he has no evidence or witnesses. A gunfight breaks out and a chase ensues, during which Alonzo heavily beats up Jake. He gets to his car to flee, but Jake jumps on the car's hood. Alonzo tries to crash the car a few times, but he accidentally knocks himself out momentarily. When he comes to, he finds Jake holding him at gunpoint. The fiasco brings all the neighborhood thugs to watch. Alonzo offers money to the person who will kill Jake, but the thugs are tired of dealing with him, so they refuse to cooperate. Jake takes the money and walks off, leaving Alonzo in the hands of the thugs. Alonzo threatens to arrest the thugs if they harm him, so they all walk away. Alonzo gets in his car and drives to LA Airport. Unfortunately, he's cornered by the Russians and shot. He begs for his life, but the Russians laugh at him and shoot him to death. Jake returns to his home wounded and loaded as the news reports Alonzo's death. Do leave a comment telling us your favorite part of the movie. Hit the like button, subscribe to our channel, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss the next recap. Until next time, folks, take care and goodbye.